Hey folks, a couple of days ago I put up a video that explained why I believe the AR-15 is the ultimate in survival slash get home bag slash bug out bag rifles. Now in this video I put forth 4 criteria that I believe any rifle that is being considered for such position has to excel at. Now 3 of these criteria are very obvious. A rifle has to be durable and reliable, which AR-15 is. It's been used by militaries all around the world. A rifle has to be versatile. And the AR-15 is the most versatile of rifles. You can use anything from 55 grain to 77 grain ammo, and with the swap out of the bolt you can put in a 22 LR kit that now you can fire 22 LR from your rifle, so you can use a rifle as a small game to medium game hunting rifle as well as a defensive slash tactical carbine. And you can carry 300 rounds in your pack of your defensive ammo while also carrying for a couple pounds more 1,000 rounds of hunting ammo. Also, the rifle has to be lightweight, and if you build the rifle properly, your AR-15 with optics should weigh no more than 6.5, 6 3/4 pounds. Now, the 4th criteria may not seem so obvious to some, and I put it forth as it has to be field repairable. You have to be able to repair any catastrophic failure of that rifle in the field. Now, it amazes me that so many people out there have AR-15s with optics such as EOTechs, loopholes, Trigicons, aim points. I have here a Meprolite. All these very, very high-end optics that have almost no failures. But yet, people are so concerned about the addition of flip-up sights. It's become an obsession that companies make their fortunes on just these flip-up sights alone. But yet so few people are talking about ways to carry spare extractors, spare gas rings, spare trigger pins, all these things that with the if that part were to break, there would be a catastrophic failure. That rifle would then go ahead and be useless. But yet, if this part breaks, you can still fire your rifle, granted not as accurately, but it will not be a catastrophic failure. So that's why I recommend, and I put this video together tonight, that I recommend this. This is a simple, homemade kit that anybody can put together themselves, that you can go ahead and repair any catastrophic failure in your rifle with this kit. And you can keep your rifle running in the field for its maximum service length. With this kit, you will go ahead and have the opportunity to go ahead and run your rifle until your barrel wears out. First off, let me explain that the external failures first. Now, the weakest point on the AR-15 rifle, believe it or not, is this cylinder right here, where the barrel sits into. As we know, barrels and the barrel extension is hardened steel. The receiver, although it is 70-75 hardened aluminum, it is still aluminum versus steel. Now, if enough pressure is put on this joint right here where this barrel sits into this cylinder, let's say it's leaned up against the wall and something puts pressure on it from there, whether they fall on it or it gets hit by a car or as I've seen happen actually, someone I know, his rifle was run over by an elk calf and it actually sheared off over there. This barrel extension will go ahead and rip right out through the side and ripping a hole right in the aluminum like it's like nothing. But again, a barrel is a very hard thing to go ahead and replace in the field, and that's something that's just not practical. It's much easier to go ahead and carry another upper receiver. Other external parts that are there that never really fail. I've never really seen any failures on pinned on gas blocks, and again muzzle brakes, really nothing, and handguards. Although they may fail, you may have rails that fail, it's not catastrophic, so we're not concerned about that. Now internally, there are really 3 parts here that we have that can fail. One of them is bolt carrier, this whole assembly here, charging handle, and the other one is the gas tube. Now first, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. What can happen to the gas tube? I've seen it where the carrier key comes loose and strikes the gas tube. It can either crack the gas tube, it can bend the gas tube, it can go ahead and deform the mouth of the gas tube, close it up, where not enough gas would get through. I've seen it happen. So the gas tube is something that you might have to replace in the field. It's pretty simple to do so, but just keep that in mind that that is something that might have to be replaced in the field. Charging handle. What can happen to charging handles? One of the famous ways to go ahead and clear this, say a stuck case, is you hold the grip, the forend in your hand, and you grab the end of the charging handle over here, pulling down the lever, and you go ahead and slam the butt of the rifle against the ground, going ahead and applying enough force to go ahead and rip the case out of the chamber. Well, I've seen it happen that's actually bent the charging handle. So again, keep that in mind. You might need a spare charging handle. What can happen in the bolt carrier? Well, the bolt carrier itself, I've never actually seen any problems, and I've had the opportunity to work on hundreds of ARs, M16s, all different types of variants, full auto. And one thing that never really fails is the bolt carrier itself. It is just too strong, it is too hardened steel, it just does not fail. But one thing that does fail is extractors. Extractors are prone to breakage. I've seen bolt heads actually crack. I very rarely ever see any ejector problems. Gas rings. People lose cam pins when they go ahead and they disassemble or reassemble the rifle. Firing pin retaining pins. Again, another piece that you should go ahead and have a couple extra of, because people lose these all the time, and without this your firing pin won't sit in there and the rifle is useless. Firing pins, they can wear out and they do go ahead and they do crack sometimes, very rarely although. And also one last thing, your gas key. Your gas key can go ahead and come loose, strike the gas tube. This hole here, this mouth opening, can go ahead and dent, it can crack. So again, the gas key is another part of the upper receiver that needs to go ahead and be spare carried of. The one thing that can go ahead and fail is the buffer tube or receiver extension. This can go ahead, if you fall on it over here, you put enough pressure over here, you can seriously damage the receiver extension / buffer tube. It can go ahead and crack off from where it meets the lower receiver. So that's one part that you have to know that goes ahead and that fails. Another thing to know: the entire trigger group, the hammer, the trigger, the springs inside, the disconnector. Another thing are the hammer and trigger pin. We know that the hammer and trigger pin is steel, and it's rotating inside of an aluminum housing right here. So what happens when steel continually rubs up against aluminum? Well, eventually it wears out the aluminum because the steel is much harder. So what happens eventually, I'm sure you've seen this in some of the older guns, is that these pins start to walk. And as a rifle is fired, they kind of either pop in, they kind of pop out a little bit. And so one thing that I recommend is carrying a spare set of the K&S anti-walk pins, and I'll show you in my kit in a second what I have. Another thing that fails sometimes is this magazine release button. That goes ahead and cracks sometimes. I've seen these crack off. Don't know why, but I've seen it on several occasions where these will crack. Now usually it will crack over here or up top or somewhere where it doesn't cause a catastrophic failure, but if this goes ahead and cracks, there is really nothing going to hold this whole magazine release system in place. And again, if you can't keep the mag in the gun, then you can't go ahead and and keep running the gun. Another thing that goes ahead and fails is the buffer retaining pin. I'll show some examples of that in a second, but that's another piece to go ahead and keep in mind of. I rarely see any problems with the bolt catch, but again, if there's an issue with that, it's not a catastrophic failure and the rifle will run just fine. A little explanation about buffers and buffer springs. A buffer spring and a buffer should last you indefinitely. I've seen them go as much as 50,000-60,000 rounds without having any issues. So as long as you have a fairly new spring, you do not need to keep a spare spring with you, because this spring should last you essentially forever. This hammer's got maybe 7,000 rounds through it, maybe a little more. You can see, it's kind of hard to see here, but over here, this looks like it's all, this surface here, where it contacts the disconnector, it's all chewed up, completely chewed up. Now, this is a little abnormal wear and tear, but this happens for a particular reason, and this came out of a gun where I believe that the hammer pinholes weren't lined up properly with each other. One was slightly askew, and what was causing was it was slightly askew, and that was causing uneven wear. And you can see it both here in the disconnector that came off it. It's kind of hard to see, but that it's kind of chewed up on an angle there, and so is that. And as a result, so is this surface here on this trigger also kind of with this surface here kind of didn't wear out evenly. So just some things to be aware of, that that the hammers and triggers do go. So those are the parts on the lower receiver that can cause catastrophic failure if they're not, if you're not able to replace them. Before I open this up, just to let you know, it's contained inside of a buffer tube. I've gone ahead and put all my spare parts into a buffer tube, taped it up over here, also taped at the bottom because there's a hole in the buffer tube for escaping air and also for escaping water, so no small springs or pins can fall out. And this part right here, I've taped up. You see, I've taped to the side of it a gas tube, a spanner wrench for the rear of the stock, the receiver extension, and a spare charging handle. Now let's go ahead and open this up. So here I have a spare trigger. I have an Allen key to go ahead and replace the X screws on the gas key. Let's pull everything else out here. There you have it. Spare hammer, disconnector. Alright, magazine catch spring. Magazine catch button. Rear takedown pin in case you go ahead and replace the receiver extension. You go ahead and lose that pin when you're taking it apart. I have detent, spring, detent, gas key, gas rings. I have 3 gas rings, plus I have one of those one-piece gas rings. I have spare bolt and 2 spare firing pins. I have 2 spare extractors with the extractor pins. I have the extractor springs. I have the buffer retaining pins and springs for those. I have a gas tube pin right there, roll pin. This right here is for the disconnector spring. These are the firing pin retaining pins I have right here. Cam pin, and there you have it. Trigger and hammer springs. And here you go, and then we have the hammer and trigger retaining pins. You see right here they have the C-clip on them. I'll open this up. This is the K&S version, and when that receiver starts to get a little old and worn, what you do is you go ahead and you stick this through, and it's a bit wider there to go ahead and catch on the outside of the receiver, and you go ahead and put this little E-clip on there, and it goes ahead and retains that pin so it cannot walk on you and come loose. So there you have it. Plus we have castle nut, retaining lock washer for the buffer tube. With this right here, this little kit right here, you can go ahead and keep that rifle running. Any catastrophic malfunction you have can be replaced in the field. All this stuff here can be replaced in the field, and you can keep your rifle running until you go ahead and wear out that barrel. Thanks for watching, and please leave comments if you think I left anything out. I'd love to hear from you guys. If you think you need any other parts, if you think it's something else that I should go ahead and put in here. But please leave comments on this one. I would love to hear what you guys think. Thank you.